Welcome to the deep dive. NVIDIA's just unveiled their new GeForce RTX 5060 family.
Yeah, the RTX 5060 and the 5060 Ti.
Exactly. And we're really going to zero in on what these mean for, well, local AI and this whole idea of AI gaming.
And for you listening in, maybe you're tracking all this fast-moving tech. You want the key info without getting, bogged down.
That's the plan. We're here to deliver exactly that.
Right.
Our main source for this deep dive is basically a transcript from an AI Flux YouTube video.
Mm-hmm.
They really analyze these new GPUs.
Mm-hmm.
So our mission today, it's figuring out if that RTX 5060 Ti, specifically the 16 gigabyte VRAM version, is actually a smart buy for someone getting into local AI in, say, 2025.
We need to look at the specs, the price, how it stacks up against the older stuff.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Okay, let's unpack this. NVIDIA's announcement for these, well, lower-end 5000 series cards.
Yeah.
It's been a bit weird, hasn't it? A little perplexing.
It really has. I mean, these are clearly positioned below the big flagship, the 5090. They're the entry tier.
So you immediately wonder what's their main purpose.
Yeah, initially it seems like, okay, maybe lower resolution gaming, 1080p, that kind of thing.
And here's where it gets really interesting for our listeners.
Yeah.
There's this huge surge in interest around running AI models locally, right?
Definitely.
And suddenly, NVIDIA's cheaper cards become, well, pretty relevant.
Yeah.
Especially with software getting better and maybe needing less brute force hardware.
It does suggest maybe broader access. I mean, GPUs at these prices could put local AI into the hands of a lot more people, potentially.
Okay, let's get to the part everyone really focuses on. The price.
Yeah.
The money.
Dollars and cents, yeah.
The suggested retail price, the MSRP, looks pretty tempting. Around $379 for the 5060 Ti. Maybe $300 for the regular 5060. Sounds good on paper.
It sounds promising, but we should probably be realistic about the actual street prices, right?
You think they'll be higher?
Based on, recent history, I'd expect maybe 120% of MSRP, somewhere around there.
Oof. Okay, that changes the math quite a bit.
It does.
And then you look at the used market, like eBay. It gets even messier. Apparently, mid-April 2025, those older 16 GB 4060 Ti cards were going for like $500, even $600.
Seriously, wow. That really makes you question the value proposition, doesn't it? Is the new card, even if it's a bit over MSRP, better than paying that much for the older gen?
Good question. So let's dig into the hardware itself. What's under the hood? Yeah. Architecturally, the 5060 Ti is actually surprisingly similar to the 4060.
Yeah, same basic chip design, the 8106 die, I believe. 5th gen tensor cores, similar SM counts, same RT cores.
And for local AI, which is our focus here, it's those tensor cores that really matter most, right?
Absolutely. Think of them as specialized processors doing the heavy lifting for AI math, like matrix multiplication. Crucial for running LLMs efficiently.
But here's where it does differ significantly. Memory bandwidth.
Ah, yes.
The 5060 and 5060 Ti are apparently hitting around 450 gigabytes per second. That's way up from the 4060 Ti, which is around 288 gigabytes.
That is a substantial jump. And memory bandwidth is, well, it's vital for local AI. It's like the highway for data going to and from the GPU memory.
Wider highway, more data moves faster.
Exactly. Directly impacts things like how many tokens per second you can get out of a language model. Very important.
Okay, so theoretically then, the AI TOPS performance, the raw compute. Estimates suggest the 5060 Ti should be roughly twice as fast as the 4060 or 4060 Ti for AI tasks.
On paper, yes, that sounds like a huge upgrade, a massive leap.
But I sense a but coming.
Well, yeah, there's always a but between theory and reality, isn't there? Real-world benchmarks, like the Stable Diffusion XL tests Tom's Hardware ran.
What do they find?
They found the 16 GB 5060 Ti only showed about a 12% improvement in that specific Gen AI task compared to the 16 GB 4060 Ti.
Wait, only 12%. Seriously, after doubling the theoretical TOPS and that big bandwidth increase.
Yeah, a bit of a letdown, maybe.
Yeah, that seems really disconnected. Why such a small real-world gain?
It's a great question. It highlights that raw TOPS isn't everything. You've got bottlenecks elsewhere. How well does the software actually use the new hardware? Memory latency, not just bandwidth. The specific model being run, it all plays a part.
Okay, that leads us to something the AI Flux analysis was really clear on. VRAM, video memory.
Critically important.
Yeah, it basically said the 8 GB version of the standard RTX 5060, forget about it for local AI in 2025, just not enough.
Totally agree. 8 gigs is going to be a major bottleneck very, very quickly. You'll hit memory limits, things will slow to a crawl. It's just insufficient for reasonably complex models or high-res image gen.
So if you're even thinking about this card for AI,
It has to be the 16 GB version of the 5060 Ti. Absolute minimum consideration.
it's funny how NVIDIA's marketing these, though. They're talking AI creators, AI PCs.
Right, leaning into the AI buzz.
But the analysis pointed out they haven't really given much solid performance data to back that up for these specific cards.
That silence is kind of telling, isn't it? It suggests the real-world AI gains might not be the headline feature they'd want you to focus on, maybe.
Interesting point. Now, quickly, for people running different systems, the video mentioned NVIDIA pushing AI on Windows with OpenCL. What's the general vibe in the community? Linux still preferred?
Uh, Generally, yes. While Windows support is improving, Linux still often provides better tooling, sometimes better performance, and it's just, well, where a lot of the AI development happens. The expert in the source material definitely still prefers Linux.
Gotcha. And what if someone wants a PC for both AI and gaming? Is the 5060 Ti any good for that?
The source described it as okay for casual 1080p gaming.
Just, okay. Not exactly a ringing endorsement for gamers.
No. If gaming is your main thing, you might find better value elsewhere, perhaps even slightly higher up the price ladder. It's fine, but maybe not great.
Okay, so this all circles back to the main question. Is the RTX 5060 Ti good value for local AI right now? The expert in the video had some surprising alternatives.
Yeah, that was interesting.
The one that really jumped out was the RTX 3090, an older card, with 24 gigs of VRAM. They called it a current gold standard for value in entry-level local AI.
It's kind of wild, isn't it? But you can often find used 3090s on eBay for maybe the same price as a new 4070s, sometimes even less.
And that 24 GB of VRAM makes a huge difference for AI.
A massive difference. It just lets you run much larger models, handle bigger data sets, experiment more freely without hitting memory walls. Plus, the source mentioned, it's powerful enough that maybe adding a second 3090 later is actually feasible for some people.
Wow. They also said keep an eye out for deals on the RTX 4070 or the 4070 Super, potentially.
Yeah, those could also be good options if the price is right.
So taking all that into account, the real-world benchmarks being a bit underwhelming, the price likely being higher than MSRP, and these older high VRAM alternatives. What's the final verdict from the expert on buying the 5060 Ti for local AI?
The clear recommendation based on that analysis is actually against buying the NVIDIA RTX 5060 Ti, even the 16 GB model, if your primary goal is local AI.
Right. The value just doesn't seem to be there compared to other options currently available.
Exactly. The real-world performance gain doesn't quite justify the likely cost, especially when you can get so much more VRAM from something like a used 3090.
Okay, so let's sum up this deep dive. The RTX 5060 Ti. It has some nice specs on paper, especially that memory bandwidth jump.
Definitely looks good, theoretically.
But it doesn't seem to translate into the big real-world AI performance leap you might expect from those numbers.
Not based on the early benchmarks we've seen, no. Maybe 12% isn't enough for many.
And when you factor in the likely street price and the fact that older cards like the RTX 3090 offer way more VRAM for similar money.
It just doesn't look like the smartest buy for dedicated local AI right now in 2025. You really need to know your specific needs and budget.
Right. Which brings us to a final thought for you, the listener, to chew on. Things are moving incredibly fast in this space, right? Hardware, software, AI models, everything.
Constantly changing. So how might the value of these lower-end, newer GPUs change soon? Will software get so optimized that maybe you don't need massive VRAM from older cards? Or will that VRAM advantage always be king?
It's that classic trade-off, isn't it? More VRAM on older tech versus a newer architecture, maybe less VRAM, but potentially more efficient processing and better software support down the line.
It's a really interesting balance between the raw hardware muscle and, well, clever coding. Something to keep thinking about.
Definitely. Keep exploring, keep reading, and absolutely share your own thoughts and experiences. Your insights really help shape this ongoing conversation about the best gear for local AI.